All right. I'm still at work. It's pretty dark. So, and if I cut out, apologies. Welcome to our course preview for the Indian Wells-La Quinta 70.3, which takes place this weekend. Is it Saturday or Sunday, the race? I should know this.
Sunday.
Sunday. Okay.
Sunday.
Sunday's included in this weekend. It's not a target race for Golden Gate, but it's always a race that a lot of people like to round out the season with. And it is a race which Coach Meg has raced before. So we've done a couple of these throughout the season so far, and I thought it'd be helpful if we brought Meg in for her experience with the race. So yeah, that's enough of an intro from me. I'm gonna be commuting home, so I may disappear, but I will still be listening. And Meg, I'm gonna hand it over to you.
Sounds good. Hi, everybody. I'm Coach Meg. I have a PowerPoint so we can go through some stuff. But anybody doing their very first 70.3? Oh, everybody's super experienced.
I am.
Great.
No, this is my first. Yeah, this is my first. Sorry, I'm on mute.
No worries. That's great. I just wanted to be sure because there's always extra questions when it's first. So it's a good first 70.3, I think. It's also different than some other 70.3s, and we'll talk about that. So even if you have done a 70.3, if you haven't done a clean transition 70.3, then that'll all be new to you. If you haven't done a clean transition 70.3, I like to think of it as a gateway drug to doing a full Ironman, because once you get used to using all the damn bags anyway, you might as well do the full Ironman because you've done half the organizational work anyway. So I do have a little PowerPoint to go over the highlights of this course. Feel free to ask questions. You can put them in the chat, but also you can shout them out, especially if they're sort of like relevant to the topic. Go for it. Do not worry about interrupting or anything silly like that. Craig, before you go, you have to give me the ability to. Oh, wait.
Yeah, I'm here. I just made your co-host. That should be you.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Go.
Awesome. I'm gonna share my screen then. All right. All right, awesome. So little course preview. First, if you don't know me, I have been coaching for Golden Gate for a couple years now. I'm USAT certified level 1 and 2, Training Peaks level 2. I have special certifications in coaching women. And I am an open water swim coach, and I now live in Boulder, Colorado. And I currently am in Cozumel, Mexico, because I like to race here every single year. So if you ever want to know about this course, or actually pretty much most North American Ironman courses, feel free to ask. Always here for Golden Gate. All right, so Indian Wells Tennis Garden and Lake Coahuila are the two main race locations that you have to know. I'll show you where they are on the map. So it's a 2 transition race. T1 is out at the lake. That's where you'll swim. That's where you'll drop your bike. You have to go out there on Saturday and drop your bike and leave it overnight, as well as your bike bag. And you also have to take your wetsuit. It will definitely be a wetsuit legal race, but you'll need to take your wetsuit and have it decontaminated. The reason you have to do that is there is a type of mollusk that goes from lake to lake to lake. It's especially prevalent in California lakes. It's especially prevalent in the lakes in the desert. So like all the boats need to get scraped and all sorts of things. So basically you're actually just dipping your wetsuit in kind of a chlorine solution. It's a real quick dunk and out, just enough to get your wetsuit wet. And then you're going to hang it up and dry it overnight to put it on Sunday morning. But it's required at the lake. It does mean that there will not be a practice swim on Saturday. It also does mean that there will not be a practice swim before your race on race morning as well. Though you can put your face in the water and splash around, and that's about it, but you can't actually swim. The logistics aren't super complicated, but there are quite a few. So I think it's really good to show up for the race preview. So hopefully you'll find this helpful. I think familiarizing yourself with where everything is and all the different logistics will help you not be as stressed maybe race weekend. And just also you want to plan for a little extra time for everything. Last minute stress really tires the body out. I think the number one things you can do for your race this weekend is eat, rest extra, and try to organize in advance and so that you're not running around at the last minute, because that last minute stress, especially like Saturday, can really negatively affect your race. And you guys have all worked too hard to get prepped and ready to go, so you definitely want to be prepared. The other thing to point out about this race is that according to the athlete guide, still you needed vaccine proof or a negative test to enter the tennis garden. Last year, and the reason I do point this out, I have had that be in the book for a couple Ironman races this year, and then they never checked. However, last year at the tennis garden, they did physically check. And it wasn't actually Ironman that did it. It was actually the tennis garden that did it. And they were doing it for spectators as well. And the tennis garden has a lot of big events there. And they also there was a giant national pickleball tournament at the same time as the race last year. So they had spectators from both things coming in. And so I think that may be another reason why they are pretty strict about it. So just something for you to know is if it's in the book, make sure you've got it. Hopefully everybody doesn't have a problem with that and it won't be a big deal. But also you might want to make sure that if you've got family or friends coming down to spectate, that you give them a heads up so that they have it handy, because it would suck for them to come all that way and then not be able to come in and see the finish line. Event schedule is in the athlete guide and I pasted it here. You can start checking in on Friday. You can check in pretty much all afternoon on Friday and then all day on Saturday. And then I would just say, if you are possibly in the area on Friday, do it Friday. Get it done, get your bag, your stickers, all your stuff, all your bags. And that way you can kind of chill out Friday night, start organizing your bags and get them done. So that when you, then all you have to do Saturday is, like do your quick shakeout workouts, drop your stuff off, get your wetsuit dipped and go put your legs up and rest the rest of the afternoon. I think that's a recipe for a really solid race day, is to get your stuff done early on Saturday and kind of get out of the fray. The longer you're out there in the sun and the heat, it's just going to tire you out. Let's see. One thing is that it does say athlete check-in is by appointment only. However, they didn't set up for making check-in appointments, at least so far, knock wood. I got my QR code today and just and most of you should have gotten those as well. Those are good to have handy when you check in. It does save quite a bit of time. But they normally the place to go in and reserve your check-in time in active is a little hard to find, and I would show that to you, but I went in and looked yesterday and it wasn't enabled at all. So I don't actually think, even though they're saying it's by appointment, that you need an appointment. The other thing to note is, even when you were making those appointments during COVID, they weren't very strict with, if you showed up at a different time and wanted to check in, they let you. So I would just say, pick your best check-in time. I recommend earlier rather than later, and get out there and get that done. And then we'll talk about organizing in bags and all that kind of stuff. But pretty much the rest of the schedule is pretty straightforward. I think the biggest things to note is that you cannot drive. So you can drive out to the lake on Saturday, and I'll talk about that when we're talking about getting ready. You can park out there. Parking is very limited. So just plan for, it takes 25 minutes to get out there from where the tennis garden location is when there's no traffic. So plan that it might take a little extra. Parking is really limited. There's probably going to be athletes showing up there all at once. So it might take a little bit to get a parking space. It'll probably take a little bit to get your stuff dropped off. Just leave some extra time for all of that. the thing to note, there is free parking, I think, during the weekend at the tennis garden, but it's across the street, and then you've kind of got to hike in a little bit. To note, try to consolidate your trips. That's why I suggest, actually, like I said, checking in on Friday, then getting all your stuff, then going and dropping it at the lake on Saturday. Because if you have to go back and forth, it's a lot of walking. So if you can, kind of get your stuff together, do one drop, get back in bed, get off your feet, you'll save a lot of time. Let's see. Then race morning, there is zero parking at the lake on race morning. So no, there's always someone that wonders this, is like, well, can I just have somebody drop me at the lake? You can't. They're not going to let cars into the lake on race morning. Because that road in is also your bike course. So you have to go to the tennis gardens and get on a shuttle there. Shuttles start at 4 a.m. It takes about 30 minutes on the shuttle. It's just a school bus out to the lake. Shuttle start at 4 a.m. They run, someone asked how often they run. They run as soon as the bus is full, it leaves. There's several buses and they just keep rotating them on out. So you could wait 5 minutes, you could wait 15. Don't leave it too long. You don't have to be on the very first one, but I wouldn't leave it till I think the last shuttle is at 5:45. If you leave it at 5:45, you're going to be scrambling and super stressed out there at the lake. So don't leave it to that. You absolutely cannot get dropped off there. It's about a 5-mile ride in from like the main road down this windy road past there's a camping area and things like that, and then you get to the lake. And then you're just stuck there. One thing I will say when we get out there is I don't recommend it for spectators either. And there will be spectators there. Spectators absolutely welcome. They can totally shuttle out there on the shuttles as well. But when we get to the lake portion, I will explain why I think it's kind of a pain and a little bit more trouble than it's worth. Check-in, like I said, is Friday and Saturday. Check-in is obviously not open on race day. I don't know why they even felt the need to put that in the athlete guide, but hey. And you need your photo ID, you need your USAT card or a screenshot of your virtual one. They'll take that. It's not a big deal. Or you need to pay a $10 USAT day fee if you're not a USAT member. You need your vaccination proof and your QR code. Those are pretty standard for any Ironman race in North America. So hopefully you're prepared with all of those. Once again, you have to take your wetsuit out to Lake Coahuila for wetsuit decontamination, and then your bike drop off, and it can take some time. My big pro tip for when you go out to take all your stuff out to the lake is have snacks in the car. Have snacks. So Saturday should be your day of just nonstop eating. You should have your biggest meal as your lunch, lighter dinner. You should be eating carbs all day. But, if you think, oh, I'll just run out to the lake, get this done, and then we'll go for lunch. You could get stuck out there a little bit extra, and then suddenly you're not eating lunch till 3 o'clock and you're behind on your food already. And oh my God, now it's stressful. So just have snacks all day. Like I usually walk around Saturday with a giant bag of pretzels because they're salty and they're carby. So take pretzels with you everywhere you go. So there you go. Okay, what the heck is a clean transition? If you haven't done a clean transition, all that means is, unlike like maybe an Olympic race or another Ironman race that you've done before, where your bike goes on the rack, you lay out a towel, you've got your bike stuff and then your run stuff, and you've got it all nice and neatly stacked and ready to go on the ground next to your bike. That's what we would call a dirty transition. Clean transition means there is nothing on the ground. Everything must be in the bags. So when you check in and you get your race backpack and your timing chip and your bib, you're going to get 3 bags: a morning clothes bag, a bike gear bag, and a run gear bag. Nothing can be on the ground next to your bike in transition when you drop your bike off at T1 on Saturday. You need to drop your bike and your bike bag off. Your shoes could be on the bike clipped into your pedals if you're planning on doing a flying mount. that's considered okay. Your helmet must be in the bag. It must not be like hung on your handlebars, which, by the way, don't do that anyway, because precariously placing your helmet on handlebars race morning just because you think it's going to go on really quickly. I have seen so many times it get knocked off by another racer and then kicked on the ground, and then suddenly people are running around because they don't have a helmet and they cannot leave transition without helmet. So one of the great things about the bags is it's kind of a pain, but it's also everything is contained, right? So nobody's kicking your stuff, you're not losing anything. So in your bike gear bag, you're going to have your helmet, possibly your shoes. You're going to have, are you going to put on socks with those bike shoes, or are you waiting to put them on the run? Do you, any nutrition that doesn't, you can bring your race nutrition the morning of and put that on your bike. But if it's not going to go on your bike, if it's going to be loose, you need to put it in your bike gear bag so that you can then put in, say you're going to wear it in your pockets. So for example, I might bring my bottles race morning, and I always bring my bike computer race morning. I don't leave that sitting out. So I bring my bottles and my bike computer, put those on my bike. And then I have a bento box that I keep some of my race nutrition in. So I'll put that in. But if I have, say, for example, it's a long race, I have extra nutrition that goes in my bike bag so I can shove it in my back pockets. Are you going to have sunglasses, or does your helmet have a visor? Do you need anything extra? Anything that you would have in transition ready to go for the bike, you would put in that bike bag. I think probably people might be thinking about the weather, if it's going to be cool when you're waiting, if you're going to need an extra jacket or an extra jersey or something like that. If you think you're going to put that in your bike bag, maybe put it at the bottom and make a game time decision. I will tell you, having done this race when it was as cold as is predicted, swam in colder than it's currently predicted to be, and then got on the bike, I have not been cold. I think what is certainly once you get going on this bike, probably you might be cooler for the first 10-15 minutes. And once you really get moving, you're going to be quite comfortable. And then it's going to warm up throughout the day. So a ton of extra gear, you're just going to get hot and you're going to want to shed it. If you do shed it, you have to shed it at a aid station and chuck it, and you will never see it again. So just know that if you do get too hot because you've planned for too much gear, once it's gone, it's gone. You might get a volunteer that will find you, but that's a needle in a haystack. Do not count on that to happen. What I would suggest is maybe putting like a small hand towel or something in your bike bag so you can sort of wipe your face, maybe wipe your kit down if you're feeling really drippy. If you're not, just go. But that you'll be fine temperature wise. There is no body marking at this race, and you only have to wear your bib on the run. So when you drop your bike off, you'll rack your bike, and then your bike bag will hang right next to your bike on the bike rack. Your wetsuit will go in a changing room. They may have you hang your bike bag in there. I've seen it done both ways at Indian Wells. And so when you get out, when you come back on race morning, you will go into that changing tent and get your wetsuit. They put them in there to try to dry them overnight. So they actually had some heaters in there last year, because apparently people really don't like putting on clammy wetsuits when they're about to get in really cold water. So I don't know. And then your run gear bag, you'll prep and you'll drop off at T2 on Saturday. And that would include your running shoes, hopefully. Different socks if you're going to wear different socks, or if you're going to wear the same socks on your bike. Are you wearing the same sunglasses? Are you wearing a hat? Obviously your bib and your race bib holder, any nutrition you're going to carry for on the run, that should all be in your run bag, and that'll get hung up in T2. And someone did ask me how our bikes how it would be organized. The racks are organized by your number. So when you get your number, when you check in, you got your number, you're going to find your space in T1 for your bike. And then in T2, you'll find the space for hanging your bag. and that's where your bike will go when you come back in. When you go to drop off your bags, highly recommend checking out where you are in transition, not just by like, okay, this is my rack, it's got my number, but how does it line up when you're running out of the water? How will you find it? You're not going to want to be looking at all the numbers on all the racks. Maybe see if it lines up with a tree or a big giant trash can, or, oh, it's right kind of in front of the bike mechanic tent that's in transition. Find a landmark that's easy to find, and or, okay, it's the second rack over, and then I go straight down. Find something that makes it easy to find and remember for you, and then just remember that. Sometimes I've actually had to look at my wristband to figure out what number I was, because I've forgotten in the middle of a race. Sometimes you just lose your bike, you know, and what, don't pick it like it's somebody else's bike as a reminder of like where you are. Just find something that's, you know, big. Trees are good. And there are a few trees right outside transition out at the lake, but just find something like that. And also notice, where do I go into transition? Where do I come out of transition? You know, when I get out of the water, where am I going? What does the run path look like? Those are, if you've already had to go out to the lake, you might as well kind of walk around. Don't walk around too much, but those are the kinds of things that are worth your energy, is to kind of figure out, how am I getting out of the lake? Where do I go to get my bike? Then I get my bike stuff. Now where do I go to head out to bike out and out of transition? And do the same thing when you go to drop off your run bag. Just see, where am I going to come in off the bike? Okay, then how far is it to get to my run bag? And then where do I run out onto the course after I'm done changing? Familiarizing yourself with those things is easier to do in person once you're there, and definitely well worth, and can save you minutes of your race time. And that time all counts on race day. So highly recommend. Race morning, the park at the tennis gardens opens at like 3:30. The first bus leaves, because there's parking there. The first bus leaves at 4. Transition opens at 4:45. Yes, this does mean you have to get up at the butt crack of dawn, or butt crack before dawn. And it does mean you'll be eating your breakfast probably at about 3:30. This is fine. You actually want to eat your breakfast about 3:30 on race morning, because you want it nice and settled and partially digested before you get in the water at 7 o'clock. So don't sweat that. Make sure to eat a really good breakfast, not a lot of fiber, and take a bottle to sip on while in the long wait between the shuttles and all that stuff, and take something else to snack on. And definitely you'll probably want a gel, a bar, whatever you have in your race plan, or half a banana, 20-30 minutes before you get in the water. Just a little bit extra carbs to carb up right before you get in the water. Take your chiming chip and your swim cap with you out to the lake on race morning. And then obviously any nutrition that you're going to want to put on your bike. I had to copy this out of the athlete guide, because this is in the athlete guide. Don't wear your bib during the swim. Okay. To me, that seems pretty obvious, but apparently it doesn't last getting wet. And that was in there. I wouldn't have done it anyway, but now you know. There's no practice swim, like I said, on Saturday or on Sunday morning before the race. There is they call it the acclimatization zone. It's basically a part of the lake where you can go and stand in the cold water and get used to it. That is not going to warm you up for the race, but I do recommend like making sure you feel how cold the water is. There are all sorts of people freaking out online about how cold this water is going to be. I've done this race several times. I have done it when it was 52. I've done it when it was 54. I've done it when it was 58. What I will say is, if you're a member of GGTC and you swim in aquatic park, you are ready for this race, because you've probably swum in these conditions. So I don't think there's any need to freak out if you've ever swum. Like if you've swum in the aquatic park in the last month, you're fine. I will say, because there is no swim warm up, you should, however, warm up. So stretch, do a little jog in your wetsuit. It'll actually help you warm up and keep warm out there. I think the biggest things you can do race morning are to warm yourself up and also to stay warm. So the morning clothes bag, I always like have my chip, my swim cap, my goggles, my, my swim stuff that I need race morning in there. And then I will have my tri kit. And when I get there, I'll put my wetsuit on, but I usually put like a hoodie or something to stay nice and warm on top. You can wear booties during the swim. You cannot wear gloves. I hate wearing booties because even though I have really nice booties, they still feel like floppy clown feet when I'm really swimming hard. So that's your call. What I will let you know is while you're waiting to get into the swim, you're standing on either concrete or this little beach area. It's cold. That surface is cold on the morning. It'll actually be colder than the grass. It's colder than walking around transition. So you probably want to have socks you don't care about and maybe a pair of like slides that you don't care about that you don't mind throwing away. My hoodie, extra stuff to keep warm, maybe a beanie. That'll go in my morning clothes bag when I'm ready to get lined up for the swim and dropped off, and you'll get that back at the end of the race at the finish line. But you don't want to I would say you don't want to put these socks and slides in there. You probably just want to chuck them right before you get in the water. Because I have to say, I did this race when before Ironman had this race, and there was a hits race here the same week in December. I did 70.3 there, and that is the coldest my feet have ever been because it was 42 degrees. The water was 48. We stood for an hour and a half waiting to get in, and my feet were icicles before I even got in. Oh, and that swim was an Australian exit where you did a loop, got out, and got back in. Standing up was not fun. So if you can keep your feet warm while you're waiting, highly recommend. I think that'll make your race a lot more comfortable. And then there was one other thing. Yeah. So I think that will really help a lot.
Coach Meg,
Yes.
can I ask a question about the race morning bag?
Yeah, absolutely.
So usually, because you just mentioned like putting your tri kit in there, usually we like wear our tri kits when we get to the race.
Oh,
Okay,
I wear my tri kit to the race. But I usually have like my cap and my goggles and stuff with me. You take your morning clothes bag with you to the race.
Okay.
You might want to, so I have like my swim stuff that I don't feel like carrying, and then I have my kit on already.
Sure. Okay, got it.
Right. What you want to put in your morning clothes bag is any extra stuff that you might have on over top of your kit to stay warm in the morning. So if you have sweatpants or hoodie. The other thing is maybe you want a clean t-shirt for after the race, or some other kind of clothing item or something else to have for after the race at the finish line. Put that in the bag. There's the couple things I will say about the race morning clothes bag. All of your bags just tie shut, right? They're not a secure closure. The key to this is it's not a secure closure. You're going to maybe tie it shut. You're going to hand it off to a volunteer who's going to put it in this big giant stack of 2,000 of them. Then they're going to throw them in a giant truck. Then they're going to drive them to the finish line, and then they're going to put them out, right? So these bags get chucked around quite a lot. So I always have people say, oh, I always put my phone in there. And then I hear about races where people feel like their phone got stolen. I'm sure there are races where phones get stolen, but I think that probably just as often phones don't get stolen. They fall out of the darn hole in the top of the bag when the bags are getting chucked around in the back of trucks. So if you choose to put your phone in there because you have nobody to give it to that's going to meet you at the finish line, put it in something, like put it in a shoe, or roll it up in your clothes, or put it in a bag within the bag. And then make sure that morning clothes bag is tied nice and tight. I actually think that stuff goes missing out of those bags more because they get chucked around and they're not very well secured than somebody actually maliciously is stealing them. So there's that. I usually just put a couple of bucks in my morning clothes bag and some comfy clothes, and maybe I have some baby wipes in there in case I decide I feel really gross and I need to see somebody after the race. But usually I just look gross at the end of the race, so it's no big deal. everybody does. And then the one thing I will say about, I mentioned I would talk about spectators. So I have had spectators come out to this race. I've also done this race as a relay and done the swim leg. I did the swim leg. I handed off my chip. Anybody who's there that is not biking out has to wait until not only their swimmer leaves and goes off on the bike, but every single athlete has to be completed the swim, completed transition, and done the first 5 miles of the bike. So if you're out in 35 minutes, your spectators cannot leave to go back to the tennis gardens or somewhere else on the bike course to see you. They must wait at the lake, because the shuttles won't leave until the last athlete is off that 5 miles of the bike course that is out to the lake, because it's one road in and one road out. So the year that I did the bike course, I did the swim leg, I was out of the water in 30 minutes. I waited over an hour until the last athlete was out of the water. I got on the bus then, and then had to still wait another 35-40 minutes until the road was clear so they could start shuttling us out of there. And then because of traffic, because of the race, it took over an hour for our bus to get back to the tennis gardens. I stepped off the bus and my athlete pulled in off the bike and handed off the chip to our runner. So I was waiting to get out of the lake and back to the tennis gardens for 2 hours and 25 minutes, which is how long it took my athlete, my friend, to run by the bike course. So if you have really, really, really patient family who just have to see you get out of the swim, tell them to go for it. But I would also make sure they know how long they could be waiting out there and pack them snacks, because otherwise they will be hangry, and nobody wants to get to the finish line and hear from their loved ones what a horrible, rough, terrible, hard day they had sitting out at the lake while you were doing an Ironman. That's just always, well, I never have a lot of sympathy for the spectators that happens to, but okay.
Question regarding the transition bag for the bike. So as soon as you're done, you take all your bike stuff, you pack it, all the swim stuff in that same bag, then you pack it. Okay.
Exactly. So the best thing you can do with these bags is grab your bag, open it up, dump it on the ground, put all the stuff you need on, throw your swim stuff back in, and just cinch the bag and leave it. And then you go out on the ride, which is why I also will tell you, I mentioned putting things in bags. When you put them in bags, I bag like crazy. First of all, also because the bags are not sealed. Therefore, if it rains overnight, all your stuff kind of get wet because it goes in the little hole in the top. The other thing is it also helps me organize things. So, I mean, I don't bag my bike shoes and my helmet. I don't care if those get wet. But like if I have a baggie of nutrition, it's in a little baggie, then it can just get shoved in my pouch real quick. And that way I don't worry about losing a gel or something. I see people dump their stuff and it goes all over the place, and they've got single gels and now they're scrambling to pick everything up. I just put, you laugh, but it happens all over the show. So I have like my little bag of like, okay, I might need these medical supplies. That goes in this pocket. My extra nutrition goes in that pocket. The other thing is if it's going to rain, my run stuff, I bag that, because I might get super wet on the bike. I might be really wet and it shouldn't really matter, but man, there's nothing like putting on a dry pair of running shoes before you head out on a run. Even if you're just going to run in puddles the whole time, it really feels good. So I always put my stuff in baggies and then put it in the bag. So there's that. But yes, you're going to put your swim stuff back in your blue bike bag and then hang it. All right. Any other questions about this? Well, we're going to actually get to the swim, but
Coach Meg, do you have any photos of your bag of nutrition? Like, is it like a Ziploc bag that you, let's say you have those little energy chews, like, are you putting like the individual energy chews in the Ziploc bag now?
So you can do that to save yourself time, so you're not opening packages. I actually use precision hydration gels. So I have a baggie full of gels that just goes into my back pocket. because it's easier to take them out. If you shove a whole bunch of single gels into your back pocket and you pull them out one by one, sometimes two comes out and one goes flying off the side of the road. That can be no bueno. So that's why I have stuff. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
This slide is just to give you a little bit of a lay of the land. The green is the race start. So that's actually Lake Coahuila. That's where you'll swim and then get on the bike and then bike out here. And then and then back up here where the red is. And that little red bit is the run course, but that's the finish line over at the tennis gardens. The reason I'm showing you this is they look not too far apart, but they are 30 minutes apart. So, leave time, that's basically, it's not super hard, but they're different locations, leave some extra time for that. The one thing, and we'll talk about the bike course again in a little bit, but one thing you can definitely see, I think, well from here is that there are several little out and backs, which means there's turnarounds on the bike course. You just want to be aware of that. So, they're not super sharp U-turns on these turnarounds, but there's quite a few out and backs on the bike course. All right, swim. This is a swim course. As you can see, you have yellow buoys to start and then orange buoys for the second half of the race. And there are an interesting number of red buoys on this course because usually a red buoy is just a turn buoy. But there is a red buoy in the middle. But there's also right where that red buoy in the middle is there is a swim gate on this course. And I'll talk about that because that is an interesting thing about this course. So you're going to start where this green square is. You're going to swim out towards that first red buoy. There are, I think, 4 yellow buoys. Then you turn right. Then you swim about 100 yards. Then you turn right again. You start swimming back towards that center red buoy. And then so there is what is called, it's an arch. So it's an arch that goes over the swim course. It's kind of a blow up arch, and you have to swim through it. This is significant because it's a giant monumental pain in the butt. I'm not going to lie to you. So this first half of this first sort of rectangle part of the course usually isn't too bad. You're actually swimming out. The other thing to point out is that the sun, it might be a little low light conditions when you first start swimming. It'll definitely be low light conditions when the pros start swimming, but the sun is coming up over here by these last 2, over where this legend sign is, where these last 2 turn buoys are. That's where the sun is coming up. So as you turn that second turn buoy at the beginning over here and start swimming back, the sun is not quite right in your face until, frankly, you go through this gate. And then, boosh, the sun is right in your face. And so seeing the buoys on this second rectangle of the course is more challenging. So just be prepared for that. The other thing is that this first half of the course, Ironman courses can be feel very crowded. You might get bopped. You might get, you just might feel really congested with other people. That can be part of the challenge. Everybody's just trying to do their own things. So it's not malicious. It's generally just that people are just trying to get through. But what happens is it goes from being about 25 yards across between swim support. And then as you get closer to the gate, they're actually trying to get you to go through a section that's about, I would say, 10 or 15 yards across to get through this gate, which means everybody has to funnel through it, which means it gets ridiculously congested right at that gate. So just know that there might be some congestion right there.
Is it, it's a rolling start, right? So as soon as the gun goes off. Okay.
Yep. So you're only surrounded by other people that are around you, but basically you've got this far wide to be all spread apart, and then all of a sudden you kind of get all funneled in together. It is a rolling start. So for those of you who don't know what that means, you're going to line up based on your predicted swim time. So what you and your coach have sort of guesstimated is going to be your swim time for the 2,200 yards is where you should line up. I always like to tell people that you should seed yourself cautiously optimistic. So for example, if you think you're going to swim 35 minutes, line up about 32, 33 minutes. If you think you're going to swim 45 minutes, line up about 42, 43 minutes. Do not ridiculously optimistically seed yourself. In other words, if there is no chance that you could ever swim, or that you have to date never swum that distance in 30 minutes, don't line up at the 30-minute people, right? Line up approximately where you think you should be. However, also don't line up way in the back because you think, oh, I'll just go in the back. It'll be less congested. It'll be less aggressive people. You know, I'll let all the speedy people go up front and I'll just sit in the back. I cannot tell you how many athletes I have coached who have thought that that was a genius plan, and it's not, because here, and I'm not trying to be mean or sarcastic, but that's definitely a confidence issue, but you're not swimming with less aggressive people at the back. You're swimming with less confident people at the back, often who are panicking and freaking out. So suddenly you've gone from swimming with aggressive people who are good swimmers to people who are freaking out about whether they're going to finish the swim or not, and might be sort of clingy and grabby and not in control of what they're doing. So you've been practicing, you've been training, you know what you can do. Line up where you think you should. Do not go try to swim with the 28-minute swimmers if you're not one, but also don't get in the back. Nobody gets extra time either way. You don't get extra time by lining up at the front, and you don't get extra time by lining up at the back. You get the same amount of time because it starts when you actually cross the mat. I like to say the water can be AP cold because I think that most San Francisco swimmers should not be freaking out about what the water temperature is going to be like. You cross a mat when you exit, and when you enter, you also swim under, you don't swim under a mat, but you swim under a sensor when you go through that gate, which is why you do it. If you need help, that's fine. Raise your hand. Just roll on your back, raise your arm straight in the air. Someone will come and help you. Also to remember, especially if you get kicked in the face, get your goggles knocked off, you're just in a group of people who are panicking and freaking out, you can actually stop and rest on a kayak or a paddleboard. They just must not make forward progress. You can just kind of fix your goggles, catch your breath, start swimming again. Doesn't have to be a big deal, and nobody cares except for you, probably. But you can, the paddleboard or kayak cannot make forward progress. But that's your job to tell them not to make forward progress. It's your job to say, I just need a minute. I'm going to continue. It's your job to make sure that they don't paddle off to go rescue somebody else with you attached to them, because then that's forward progress. It's not their job to tell you that they've got to paddle in or whatever. I've had people lean on a jet ski and then get mad because the jet ski drove them in, and then been like, well, I didn't want to be driven in. Well, it is your job technically to let them know. So anyway, no shame in that. If you need to fix yourself, sometimes that can actually be better than trying to struggle through for a second, and then get yourself back together and get swimming. So I did mention the sun being in your eyes. So I definitely would wear polarized and tinted goggles for this race. I wouldn't necessarily pick like super dark black ones because it is going to be lower light when you start, but I wear a blue tint polarized goggle for this race, and it's always worked like a charm. Any questions about the swim?
Nope.
Okay. It's a nice clear lake. It's perfectly fine. Like there's nothing wrong with it, except people freak out about the water temperature. The bike is flat, like it's like ridiculously flat. And it's very, very fast, especially the first half. In fact, the only thing that you could even almost remotely call a hill on this bike course is actually coming out of transition. It feels like you actually just go up the tiniest little hill and then you're out there. That's not entirely true. There's a couple inclines, but there's no big hills on this course. And the biggest thing that you will figure out is that the second half can get really windy. So you can come out of transition, you get going, you get a little warmed up, and suddenly you look down, you're going like 26 miles an hour and you feel like you're only going RPE 5, and it's like, whoa. And then you come around a corner, and now one of these out and backs, you turn around and suddenly the wind hits you in the face, and suddenly you're not going that fast anymore. On that second half where it can get windy, just watch your power and your heart rate here. So if you use power on your bike, keep an eye on your power. When you hit the wind, that is not the time to be like, oh my God, now I can't slow down this much. I have to crunch the pace, and you don't want to be crunching the power there when you hit the wind and burning all your matches, because then you will have a particularly sucky run. Basically, you're going to get some extra speed on that first half. You're going to slow a little bit if the second half is windy. If it's not windy, hooray, have fun. But it often can be a little bit windy there. I think it depends how much. Just keep an eye on your heart rate. Make sure you're not cranking it too hard and that you don't burn yourself out. On the aid stations, there are, I think there's 4 or 5 aid stations. It's going to say on the next slide, there's 4 or 5 aid stations on the bike. They've got tons of stuff. I'll go over that in just a second. But there will be the aid station. You'll see the tables, then you'll see a row of cones. If you're going to get something from the aid station, you go inside the cones and you slow down just a bit so that you can grab bottles and food and things like that. If you're not going to get something from the aid station, stay on the outside of the cone and continue as planned. Be careful on this course. There are a couple of things. One of the things you should definitely log in and look at the athlete guide and familiar yourself with, especially if this is your first Ironman race, is the drafting rules and what that looks like and how far it actually is. It's 6 bike lengths. That is not a small amount. It's not 3 bike lengths. It's 6. That's 20 meters. 20 meters is a lot. All right. That is, if you go to a pool that's 25 meters across, that's almost the whole way across the pool that you need to be between you and the bike in front of you. Right. So keep that in mind. Have a look in the book and make sure you know that. You need to pass on the left and you need to call it. The reason I'm going to remind everybody to call it here is because this course can be really, really fast. You go to pass somebody, they might be on the side, they might be riding nicely on the right and it's easy to pass them. However, there can be some sections of this road where it gets gravelly. There can be the road is mostly a pretty good surface, but there are a couple of areas where there's some good sized potholes right on that shoulder, right? And so somebody who might be riding nicely on the right that you think you can pass real quick on the left might suddenly decide to scooch over a little bit because there's a pothole, and suddenly now it's pretty tight. So just make sure if you're calling, it takes 2 seconds to yell on your left and to pass them. And it just will keep, because it could ruin your race as much as theirs. And just make sure you know the passing rules and that there's no slotting in. So if, for example, if there's 3 people in a row and if you make the pass, you might have to actually pass all 3 people if it's tight. And you can't just pass one, slot in. You can only slot in if there's enough room to do so legally. And just remember that. The other thing to remember is if someone starts to pass you, once their front wheel passes your wheel, you're responsible for dropping back. So make sure that you then slow your roll a little bit and let them get ahead of you so that it's the appropriate amount of bike lengths. Also, if you are passing, don't pass somebody just to pass them and then slow down and then have a sandwich. Okay. This is everybody will have that happen to them at some point in time. It just happens. But if you're going to have a snack, maybe have the snack before you make the pass. It's just, but it always happens. It never fails. Is that somebody makes the pass, you start to drop back, and then you're like, wait, did they just slow down? Are they having a sandwich right now? And then it's like, damn it, now I got to pass you. But if you look at the elevation, there's 528 feet in the whole bike course. That's really not much at all, just to be clear. If you've ever done like a loop at Kenyatta Road out in Woodside, That entire 17-mile loop is 400 feet. So, and that's pretty freaking flat for the Bay Area, right? So, so that's it. You basically got the whole amount of elevation for the entire bike course right there. So, there is one section where you actually go off the road and onto a racetrack and ride. It can be a little fun. It can also be a little windy. So make sure you bank the corners because it's super fun right there.
Yes.
I mean, when else do you get to do that? So there you go. And just when you're kind of like, wow, this is actually a really boring bike course and I'm kind of bored now, then you're back. So there you go. And you get to jump off your bike and run and get your run stuff on and go run. Bike aid stations are every 15 miles. There's water, there's Gatorade Endurance, there's more 10 gels, there's fig bars, and there's bananas. As a coach and as your friend, I will tell you absolutely right now, do not eat the fig bars on the bike course. Who does that? We were having a good laugh about this yesterday. I taper fiber race week. I don't eat fiber during the race. Why would I do that? I mean, unless you want to poop yourself on the run, and in which case, have at it, eat all the fig bars you can. But no, I mean, stuff one in your pocket for after the race if you want, but don't eat the fig bar during the race. Okay, run. The run is a rolling running course. There's almost as much, as you can see from the elevation down here, there's almost as much elevation on the run as there is on the whole bike course. That's usually not the way it is. There's not a ton of elevation. There's one sort of long, slow incline, but it is a golf course. So there's a lot of this, right? It's pretty, it's nice, it's green. But a lot of people don't like golf courses. I will tell you, I'm not a huge fan of running on this golf course. I just did the St. George 70.3 Worlds where we ran on a golf course. I thought that was going to be crap. It was actually stupid hard, and I actually really liked it because it was stupid hard. But this can just be, it's not hard. It's just a little hard to kind of get a really good run rhythm down because you're kind of doopty. The other thing about this run is it can get blistering hot. It actually feels hotter. It always feels hotter than it is. It's like, oh my God, was it like 100 degrees? And it was like, it was like 80, but it just feels ridiculously hot. I also think that because it's cooler in the morning and it's cooler now in San Francisco, a lot of times this run actually almost always feels pretty hot. So make sure to get all your fuel in on that bike and hydrate really well on that bike, and then also on the run. The more fuel and the more hydration you get on this bike and run, the better you're going to feel. That second loop won't suck so bad. You actually go and you run all over the golf course, and you come back up, you run all the way into the tennis garden. You actually run into the tennis garden and around this little traffic circle, and just like your feet could touch that finish line carpet. But no, you got to go do it one more time. My favorite thing to do when you're like, oh man, do I really have to not go down the finish chute and go out and do this whole run course again? My favorite thing is to just throw your hands up, scream uno mas, and go for it, because it actually makes you feel better. Because hey, if you got to do it, because usually the crowd then cheers and it's more fun. So run aid stations, they're every mile. So they're every mile, and you should drink something at every one. There's water, there's Gatorade Endurance, there's Red Bull, if you're into that kind of thing. There's cola. I will tell you that on the second loop, cola is the magic elixir of life, which will make you run faster. I don't care what Red Bull markets, I'm telling you, it's cola all the way. However, as I will also tell you that the pro tip is don't drink it on the first loop, because once you have it, you have to have it every time, because otherwise there's like this massive sugar crash that you get. So I reserve it for the second half, and then it's like finish line juice. There's also more 10 gels with calf, the ever so smart fig bars, chips, pretzels, fruit, and then this active ice, which is kind of like BioFreeze. I've never stopped in the middle of the race and put a biofreeze type ointment on my legs. But then again, if I have cramps, I'm usually focused on getting enough salt in to get rid of them, because that's generally what my issue is. So you will not want for anything at these aid stations. Just be careful if you haven't trained with it. Don't try to have a rolling buffet. Just because it's free doesn't mean you should eat it. And then post race, then you actually get back to that carpet the second time and you get to go down it. You're going to get a medal. We're all going to be cheering. We're going to be screaming GGTC. I'll be a lady in crazy blue out there all day. I'll be on the bike because I am doing the bike leg of a relay, but then I will be all over that run course because I have many athletes racing. I have 6 athletes racing, and then I have 6 relay teams racing. So I have a lot of athletes on the course. And I will actually be in my blue TMT kit, but I will be that lady screaming GG at all the GGTC folks, but make sure you wave and say hi. Get your medal, celebrate, get some post-race food. This is now the good time to have the fig bars, though you probably won't want them. You have to make sure you get your bike and your gear out of transition by 4 o'clock. That's plenty of time. Go to the awards, figure out a time for everybody to meet up and take a club pic and celebrate. If you finish and there's lots of GGTC folks still out, grab a snack, come out onto the run course. I will probably be on the far side of the tennis garden because there's a nice shady spot there and everybody goes by there twice, or actually 4 times because they go in and go out, and come and join me and cheer. Any other questions? Fun. Oh, and I put a little packing list in here. So this is actually in the athlete guide. I have a similar one. I think it's a great thing to have. You are not all going to need everything on this packing list. For example, hair ties is on here. Not everybody needs a hair tie. But it's a good list to have and kind of go through it and say, no, I don't need that. Or yes, I do need that. And oh crap, I forgot to put it in my bag. So I always, I can't tell you how many races I've done, but I still kind of go through the list and make sure that there's nothing I've spaced. I actually have my own packing list now, so I don't use theirs, but yeah, handy dandy.
I have
Question?
a question.
Yes.
You mentioned you don't recommend having spectators go to the swim, which makes sense. Where would you recommend telling them to go?
So there are a couple of spots on the bike course where they will see you come in, which are not too far from the tennis garden. And they can definitely go there. There are plenty of spaces on the run course as well, where they will see you not once, not twice, but 4 times, right? So there is where you come out of transition, on the side of the tennis garden. You actually run onto the grass. You run past there on your way out, you run back on the way back in, you go around the tennis garden thing, then you come back out, and then you come back in, and it's right before the finish as well. And actually, if a spectator is really good, they can actually cut across and meet you at the finish line. So that's actually a really good spot. That's usually where I am. There are further out places on the run course that they can go to. Those are pretty good. They're still going to see you 2 to 4 times. But I usually have athletes that are getting ready to finish. And so I go back and forth. So that seems to be a good spot for me. And there's a little shade.
Thank you.
There's a little shade there too.
Hi,
So-
Meg, it's Jed. Thanks for replying to my email about my nose, one of the most colorful email threads I've been on. I read the athlete guide and it said there are no earbuds or anything allowed during the run. Like, I'm used to running with music in my ears.
Welcome to triathlon, Jed.
Wow. Okay.
So I hate to be mean, but this is not only an Ironman rule, and it's a very strict one. It's a USAT rule. So any US triathlon that is USAT sanctioned will enforce this. I will say I've seen them at Santa Cruz at the smaller Santa Cruz race, and it pisses me off every time because it's a safety issue, and that is why it's against the rules. I have also watched Ironman officials chase people at Ironman Santa Cruz 70.3 and make them take them out. And then when the guy tried to sneak them back in, they actually confiscated his earbuds. So I mean, that is I literally watched the guy argue with the race official about it. And I was like, dude, if you like it's in the rules.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
that is not a reason you want to get disqualified.
Yeah, that's right.
I run with music when I'm training sometimes. I never race with it. I don't even race in running races with it because I'm just so used to it now. You know, are you going to miss it? Probably for a little bit, but also you might not miss it as much as you think because there's so much going on, right? Like race day is kind of like a sensory overload, and with aid stations and other athletes and all sorts of things, I think you'll find it, you'll miss it a little bit less.
Okay. I
you
wanted
know,
to ask about, it also said no smartwatches. Am I allowed to wear my Garmin?
you are absolutely allowed to wear your Garmin. You
Okay.
just
Watches.
take the call on your Apple Watch, okay?
Ah.
Because there's always that guy, that I don't mean to say that guy like only a guy would do that, but there's always that person, right? Who will take. There's also so you used to not even be able to have your phone out on the course, and if they knew you had it, you would be disqualified. Now you actually can have it, but you are not supposed to use it, right? So it could be in your back pocket, but you're not supposed to take it out and like take selfies and call your mom, or text people. I gotta say, I saw somebody stop on an Ironman recently, as in like a week and a half ago or a week ago, and take pictures. And it was like, okay. Now technically, if somebody saw that, they would be disqualified. But yeah, but no, you can absolutely wear your Garmin. They just mean like Samsung watches or Apple watches. Don't take a friggin' phone call. Don't use it as a music device, that kind of thing. Yeah. Your
Got it.
Garmin.
Thank you.
Sure. And then the phone thing, the one thing I will say is, there are athletes who actually need their phones as a medical device. That is the one time where you get a dispensation and you are allowed to actually look at your phone during the race. And Ed, if your nose blows, if your nose runs, what are you gonna do?
I'm gonna try a nose rocket.
Yes!
Snot rocket.
I have to tell you, you know what really amused me the most about that entire thread was there's all these guys going, oh, I could never do that, or take this drug, or wear this, or whatever, and all the girls are like, you just jettison the snot from your face, right? So I thought it was really hilarious because here's all the women going, just like, we're being gross, you know, it's like, you know, but you know, we're deep competitors, so. Yes. I was really proud of my girls there. That was great. And now probably the other women on this call are like, oh my God, this is gross. I'm just kidding. Yeah, no, I actually have this now. My nose always runs on the bike. So anybody else have any questions not related to poor Jed's nose?
I have a question.
Yes.
Yeah, I wanted to know, is it possible to run on the run course before the race, like the day before?
There are parts and parts you can't because they're closed, right? So you can definitely run on the road part portions. You can certainly walk or run around most of the tennis gardens. But I think there's a section, I think you're not allowed out on the golf course the day before.
Thanks.
What about in the water, Coach Meg? Can you swim on Friday or Saturday, or even Friday?
You cannot swim at Lake Wahila, period.
Okay.
So I think I said there's no practice swim on Saturday and there's no practice swim before the race on Sunday. There is no swimming at Lake Wahila except for race day.
Okay, so if the coach, so like JD says, like do a little bit of each workout, like whatever, 500 yards or something, then that's assumed to be in a pool then, not
Yes,
at the lake.
yes, and I will
Okay.
happily tell you the name of the pool that is really fantastic.
Good.
Hold on. There is a pool that is not far from the tennis gardens. It is the Palm Desert Aquatic Center, which is in Palm Desert, which is right near La Quinta. It is a fantastic aquatic center and they welcome racers.
Cool.
So that is where I will be doing my shakeout swim on Friday.
Okay, thank you so much.
No problem. My pleasure.
What about biking on Saturday? Are there parts of the bike course that you would or would not recommend biking on?
There's a couple of areas there where it's a little trafficy, but most of the bike course you can bike on no problem.
Cool, thank you.
I wouldn't do the whole bike course on Saturday
For sure.
or even Friday. Oh, you would be surprised. Some people will, but yeah. I'll actually probably ride my bike out to Lake Coahuila to drop my bike off. So, and then get a ride back. So that's usually how I do my shakeout. Kills two birds, one stone. But you definitely want to make sure you get a ride in down there, no matter what. One, to shake out your legs, but also just to be sure that your bike is operating in full, awesome working order, and that putting it in the back of your car or on the back of your car or flying with it or whatever doesn't, you want to run through all your gears. You want to make sure your brakes are looking good. You want to check your tires. If you are running tubeless, you're a genius, because this is an excellent course to run tubeless tires on, because there's a little bit of debris. And look, the roads are not too bad, but there's some debris. There's always some debris and some rocks on this course. And so there's usually quite a few flats. So if you are not running tubeless, take a couple extra tubes, because then you won't need them. And I will have helped you there. So there you go.
Coach Mike, do you run with a run vest on at this race?
There's aid stations every mile.
Yeah,
If
I didn't
it's-
realize that.
So you might not need it.
Okay.
But if it's I think it really depends on your heat tolerance. So I don't run with a vest on at a 70.3 unless it's going to be really hot. And if it's really, and by really hot, I mean like in the 90s, and then I definitely do, because I don't want to wait in between aid stations to get hydration in.
Okay. I just had seen something. It might have been on Reddit. That's kind of embarrassing to say, but it said that they ran out of water last year or 2 years ago or something. So I don't know.
I have done many courses where they ran out of water, and I do not recall this race ever running out of water. This race is pretty, I have to say, this race is pretty well organized. Now it's not wood, but this race is pretty well organized.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and the volunteer crew here is really, really very sharp. I race in Mexico where they run out of water all the time, so that's a very different experience. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But if you're comfy in your vest, go ahead, go right for it. All right, any other questions before we go? I think Craig is ready to wrap this up. And it's also my bed. It's way past my bed.
Way past your bedtime, yeah. Cool. I listened to the whole thing. I managed to get the bus, go to Trader Joe's, and go to Whole Foods, and get home. So very thorough.
I tried.
That all sounded great. Just that on the ground experience, Meg, from numerous years of racing. I think it was really helpful for everybody. Yeah. So thank you so much. Good luck, everyone.
Yeah,
We'll be
be
following
fun.
you all on the tracker, and we'll celebrate with you when you get back.
Thanks, Coach Meg.
Say hi.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Well,
Meg.
have a good night.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Meg.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.